If you are looking for a really simple beginner project and something that you could possibly add to your home, whether it be a nursery, a library, an office to display your books, this is definitely the video for you. Hey, my name is Amanda Weldon. I love to do home style and lifestyle and travel whenever I can, but today we're going to cover a really simple DIY project for our soon-to-be baby boy's nursery. Now, I have scoured the internet on how to add the perfect decor to his nursery and found this wall hang that has truly been living rent-free in my head. So I thought, let's go step by step today. You're gonna find all of the chapters on how to assemble this yourself, whether you are a beginner, an intermediate, or an expert. This is gonna be such a simple step-by-step. I would personally consider myself an intermediate when it comes to using power tools. I've been doing a lot of projects for quite some time here in our home, learning from my dad, who is also gonna be joining us today, and he always has some extra tips along the way. So if you are a beginner, not only are you gonna learn how to do this project, but I guarantee you're gonna learn some skills along the way that are really gonna help you in your projects in the future. So we are gonna be putting together this wall hang that will display some nursery books. And one of the best things that I think you can do, especially in a smaller space, is whatever decor you have, if you can make it a functional piece as well, you are truly winning. There is only gonna be one point in this video where it's kind of choose your path to a bit more of an intermediate decision or a beginner decision, but I promise you, if you are, again, a beginner, you are going to be able to accomplish every single one of these steps to create this project and ultimately something beautiful for your home. Now, this video is sponsored by RONA, my true home away from home. So a one-stop shop, we're gonna pick up everything that we need, and throughout the chapters, I'm gonna talk you through measuring, finding where the studs are, creating the perfect sizing details that are gonna help you in chapter 2, which is gathering your materials, which we will be doing at RONA Plus, and then into chapter 3, which is assembly. We'll talk about power tools, and then number 4 is gonna be choosing the paint color, making sure that everything is all set and sorted and really beautifully put together for your paint in your room, and then chapter 5, decor and hanging it up. And you've already seen a little bit of a glimpse of the final project, which technically on this timeline, I haven't seen yet. So let's dive into this video, start with measurement and a couple of the details that you're gonna need to know to start this project, no matter what the size of your room, no matter where you live, whether it's an apartment or a mansion on the beachside, you're going to be able to accomplish this project. So this is my dad, his name is Rob.
As you don't know.
And we have decided to put the bookshelf in this corner. So the first step that we're actually gonna do in the quote unquote measuring process, that this is like so great to have him here because he always thinks about these extra things in the project, is finding a stud.
Yeah, well, we're going to measure all the material, so we use as little as possible what it is, so we get full value out of the material, right? We have a stud finder, so we can find the studs. So right there it is. We can use the stud finder to find the other one, but they're always placed 16 inches apart when they build a house, right? Mm-hmm. So if we have that one, and we go over, and it's measured on your tape, the little red 16 is where the stud is. So we're really lucky today because the bookshelf's going to go here. Mm-hmm. We can put screws through the little bookcase right into wood. That's the best way.
That's the best way.
If you can't find a stud, you just have to get hangers, like certain plugs to hang it up a little bit more.
And if you're a beginner watching, the reason why you would want to find those studs obviously is because you're going right into wood. A stud is a wood piece in the wall. So that's going to make it as secure as possible. And we'll show you how to screw into that as well. Yeah. And you're hanging books and they're pretty heavy.
Books, so they're heavy.
We're using just a regular measuring tape. So this is just part of the RONA Plus Value Plus. I'll put the price on the screen. And then what he's done here is gone in this corner and started to make those measurements. Okay, so let's set the scene for you guys and what we're gonna be creating today. So say this is the shelf unit that we're creating. The two sides here are gonna be 3.5 feet. And then the bottom part here, we're gonna do 2 feet. Now this is something you could totally change for your space, but this is what's gonna fit best in ours. The bottom part here is technically a shelf, and we wanna add 2 more at an equidistant. And that's gonna allow a lot of those books to fit in these spaces. But what's nice about this unit is the top part doesn't have a closing shelf, but rather a support shelf. So all of these are actually made out of the same wood, and that wood is going to be the 4x1s. And you can find that in stores. Now, funny enough, when you actually get a 4x1 sheet, it's not, or a board rather, it's not going to be 4 inches by 1 because that's the rough cut. And that is something I literally learned today after doing tons of projects. What these actually measure out to is 3.5 by 3/4, but don't let that intimidate you. And if that feels like it's going in one ear, out the other, don't even worry about it. So what we did was we purchased 3 4-inch by 1-inch boards. So that's the first thing you have to purchase in your materials. And then these boards are at 8 feet long. And that's going to give you enough material to make all of those cuts as well as the sides. Now, those aren't the only long boards that we purchased, because we also have these little supports that are going to go across, and that's so that each book can lean but not fall off the shelf. We wouldn't want that happening. And these are our 2x1. We only purchased 1 of those, so it's a 2-inch by 1 because we're going to be cutting 3 of those at 2 feet, and that is also an 8-foot long board. So those are all the boards that we got, and then of course the very back unit, that is going to be our bead board. So we got 1 big sheet, and if you don't have a table saw, this is the one that you can grab the handy people at RONA to help cut this down to size for you. And down to size for us would be that 2 foot by 3.5 foot sheet, because that's going to be the backing of our unit. There are a couple of fancy dancy things we're going to do in the middle, but this is basically the simple layout of what we're creating today. For the beginners out there, just a really quick tip. When you are in the lumber store, when you are in RONA and you are choosing your pieces, I want you to think of it as choosing the fruit in the grocery store. The top one's probably not always going to be the best because people are sifting through. So these, you're always looking at the sides, making sure there's no notches or anything like that out of it. And sometimes as well, just because it is the nature of wood, I'll show you this one up here. Depending on the look, you can even see that sometimes they'll have knots in it. I mean, maybe you do want that in your style to make it look a little bit more rustic, but we're looking for something to be really nice and clean. The first pieces that we're going to cut right now are the sides, because those are our longest pieces, and that means we're going to be able to observe all of these boards and make sure that they are nice and smooth. So those are the 2 that we're going to cut at 3.5 feet. We're going to do a quick step that's basically called cleaning off the ends. So this is kind of what we were talking about with the rocky sides.
So the boards, most of the time they're square at the end, but it is a little rough. So what we want to do, we're going to have extra board. Is the saw is nice and square, so we'll do a starting point, a brand new cut. So now it's just nice and square. Okay.
So let's do that first cut, and then we'll do the 3.5 foot piece. When you are using the miter saw and you're a beginner, one thing I really want you to know about safety is you're not gonna like go down and have the saw still spinning and then pull it up, because that basically causes wood to flick off and kind of go flying into the air, especially if you have small pieces on the end. So what you wanna do is go nice and slow. It's definitely not a race. Turn on the saw, start ripping into the wood, and then go all the way down. Make sure the saw blade stops, and as soon as it's fully stopped, then you can release and pull the wood away. Once I'm finished cutting a board, I always like to sand the edges. You're gonna have little splinters and things like that, no matter how sharp your blade is. There is some special tape that you can use to avoid it, but what's really great is just a sanding sponge. So make sure you add that to your list as well. I'll put a list of everything that you're gonna need down in the description box. Next up for this project, we finished cutting all of the shelves that we had talked about at that 2 feet mark. We did the sides already at the 3.5 foot mark. And then next up, I'm going to talk to you about those guards. There's something very specific about them that makes it a little bit more intermediate, but really easy. I love getting everything in situ, kind of like mise en place when you're preparing a recipe for dinner. It's the same at the beginning of a project. So I mentioned that there will be a couple little finagly bits that kind of lean more into the intermediate space. Now these are the pieces that go across so that the books don't fall over. we need those supports. But just stylistically wise, and based on the inspiration that I really loved, I just feel like I want these pieces to be thinner. What we're gonna do is actually run this in through the table saw that we've got. So basically split it right down the middle, and then we actually get 4 supports versus 2. So you're using less materials. We only need 3 for this project, but yeah, using so much less materials. If you are at the beginner stage and you also don't like how chunky this looks, you could definitely pick up a piece of wood that's just thinner at RONA Plus. The second more fancier flourish that we did was at the top here. So what you saw me do was draw a template out of cardboard and then basically draw it on my wood, and then I cut this out. Now, I haven't used the jigsaw a ton of times, so I had a couple of questions to my dad. Is the starting process hard or anything like that? And honestly, it was really, really easy, and that's because this wood is so soft, so it really just digs in. It's moments like this when you're a beginner that you want to try to do a lot, but what you really need to remember is just to allow the tool to do the work. So as soon as you start the jigsaw, you're kind of off and running. Go nice and slow, allow those teeth to dig in, and just follow the line that you've created. And because these 2 pieces, and it needs to be clamped down as well, but because these 2 pieces are actually the top pieces apart from each other, they don't have to be exactly perfect. Obviously, you want to try to get as close as you can with the template. I think that's pretty darn good, but they are going to be apart, so visually, they're gonna look absolutely perfect. And then one little note that we made as well, when we drew the template, remember, we do have that support board at the top, so we don't want that support board to then have kind of a jagged piece coming out. So basically, when that board goes on, we wanted to make sure that our design would encapsulate that within it. Okay, we have all of our materials cut, we have our fun details done, and now is the point where we put things together. So in terms of materials and tools, what you're going to need is a brad nailer. I am obsessed with this one from DeWalt. It is so amazing because you don't have to have a compressor. It works on battery, and these batteries are compatible with all of the DeWalt tools, which makes me a true DeWalt girly, but I digress on that, or else this video will be an hour long. You load your magazine just at the bottom here, and what we're going to use is 1 3/4 inch nails, and then you just go. So what's important to know here is how thick the wood is that you have to go through, and then how much it will grab onto the next piece. Now the wood is 3/4 inch thick, so now that we know that our brad nail is 1 3/4 inch, we know that 1 inch will go into the next piece. Now to secure it extra, we're also going to be using wood glue. So that is also a really good thing to have on hand. Wood glue and a brad nailer. This is definitely going to stick together really nice and firmly. It's all you need. For the next few processes, what we would make sure we would do is we would put a little bit of wood glue where it was going to be sticking to the next piece of wood, and then use our brad nailer to fully apply the piece. For this project, we started with the outside frame, and then my dad would measure with a T-square, another thing I'm going to be adding to your materials list. It's great to have on hand, just to make sure that our corners were at that perfect 90 degrees. And then we made sure that each shelf was about 13 inches in our design apart, but it depends on what your measurements are on how far those are going to be. But if you make them equidistant, it's just going to look really beautiful. But I did make one mistake. Okay, guys. You're always resistant on these videos to show that you made a mistake, but I made a mistake, and I want to show you how we can correct it forever and always. So of course you put the glue as well as the brad nails in to secure, but look what I did. This is why you never put your fingers close to when you're doing the brad nail.
Yeah.
But what shall we do?
Well, go slow, take your time. This was down here.
Yeah.
And you had it this way, so it doesn't take long. But if you go this way, you can see your line.
I wonder if there's a better way to show. So I won't show on an angle here. I'll show right here, Dad. And can you show them, like, because you can see the viewfinder there, how I was doing it. So I was doing the...
Well, you put it there, but you had the this way.
Yes.
It's hard to tell where the board is.
Yeah.
When this was laying flat,
if
you nail this way, keep your gun parallel with your wood, you can see where it is.
You can see where it's going.
And never have your hand on the other side.
Never have your hand on the other side, especially when I've got the brad nail in my hand. So what we're going to do is there's 2 options. You can cut this off or you can pull it out. It's really soft wood, and I obviously don't want any like hard bits sticking out, so we're going to try to pull it out with the hammer and just nail it through and pull it out from the other side. So that's what I'm talking about there. If you do make this mistake, it's easy to remove the nail. As I said, you're going to want to use a leveraging system so that you don't dent your actual wood, because again, it's soft, but pliers and then just something that you can leverage off of it, it'll work the trick. Oh, there you go. Good job. It's like it never happened.
Never happened.
Okay, so we have an option here. Originally in the inspiration, these pieces were above the board there, so that's how we cut it. But we actually like the way that it looks on the inner casing. So totally depending on what your preference is, there's definitely enough room for books to lean on these shelves. So we're actually going to make it look a little bit more built in on the inside to have that guard there. After all of those cuts were made, we then lined them up and did the exact same thing. We measured them 3.5 inches from the shelf on every single side, and then followed the same procedure with the glue as well as the nail. You can see the backing of the beadboard here as it's cut to that 3.5 and 2 feet length. But what's important to know is I'm actually not going to connect them just yet. What you see me doing here is filling in any of the brad nail holes with my favorite thing, the 15-minute LePage caulking. It's just so great. It's a spackle actually, so I just filled in those holes so that it looked seamless when I do paint. And another thing you want to do is make sure that you prep the shelf. So I'm just using my sanding block. You could also just use a regular sanding piece of paper and sand the whole project, yet you're going to keep both the beadboard as well as this piece, your whole frame, separate for painting, because that's going to make it just so much easier to get that first or second coat of paint, which we're going to go pick up now. Officially, I'm back at RONA Plus, and I have brought with me a sample of, sorry that you're getting totally dazzled here. I brought with me a sample of the wallpaper. So I'm thinking what I'm going to try to do is almost match the bookcase to the oak leaves and the acorns in the wallpaper. And originally I was thinking, oh, maybe something punchy, something that's like really going to stand out, but everything in the room is so cohesive right now that I don't want it to look like it was purchased. I want it to look like it was thoughtfully designed for the room. So let's do that. I'm gonna go into RONA. I'll shoot some footage there, and if there's anything notable to let you know, obviously I'm gonna get just a tiny little quart size of paint because I'm only painting a project, not a room. But if there's anything that I need to let you know, I will in voiceover. The color matching in RONA Plus went so well. I can't believe how closely we got it to the leaf. Their experts truly are just that. I would highly recommend starting with your beadboard and using just a tiny foam roller. It's just really easy way to apply it. You'll also have to go in with a brush later, and the brush that I recommend, because this is my first time using it and I love it, it's this polyester one from Sims. Good morning, you guys. It's actually the afternoon. I'm just getting all set up here for day 2 of filming, but this is what we are looking like so far. It looks so good. I don't know what it's coming off like on camera, but it's not exactly a white. It's more of this like mushroomy undertone to a white. But I did my first coat and second coat yesterday. One of the things, let me get this part off. I think I want to sand this a little more, and I might even put some more paint on it once I get it secured to the backing. But one of my pieces of advice when it comes to painting the beadboard was, oh, it's probably picking up on how bright this is, making me a little darker, but what I would recommend is starting with a roller or starting with your paintbrush and just getting in those grooves. I was outside and it was so bright yesterday, and the beadboard originally comes in white, so it kind of blended together. I started with my roller and I thought I had gotten everything, and then when I brought it in here, I noticed there was just little strips and ticks of white that I could see bleeding through, and that was obviously just because the roller wasn't able to get into those nooks and crannies. So I took my brush and I just brushed in all of those spots and filled it in really nicely, and then I actually went over it with the brush fully, and it gave it a really nice kind of like bespoke farmhousey feel. So I am so happy with this, and what we're going to do next is we are going to secure the actual shelf unit part to the backing. I'm going to do that outside with my brad nailer. But what's important to note here is when we were originally using our brad nailer, we had filled it with 1 3/4 inch nails. Now that is going to be way too long. I mean, it would still work if you're kind of perfect on it, but it would be way too long on the tops and the bottoms. It would actually shoot all the way through the project, effectively creating a really nasty mark. So I need to make sure that whenever you are doing a project like this, you are using the proper size finishing nail. So I think I'm gonna actually just go for a 1 inch, because what we need to do is get through the backing and just kind of secure in to the project without going through. So I'll show you that. Okay, so these are the 1 3/4 inch ones. I just put them away, but I'll just show you. Basically, we just have to go through a little bit of the backing, and if it did, this is what I'm talking about, it shooting through the tops, because I'm gonna secure it through the tops and the sides, just on each edge of the beadboard, on the edge of the frame. But then we also have 1 inch, so let's make sure these work better. Just enough to grab, but I also don't want it to be shooting all the way through too hard, so that's something I'm gonna have to be aware of. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on the edges where I know absolutely it won't go through anything, and then we'll work towards the other bits here. But this is one of those notes where I say, sometimes it's nice to purchase more than you need when it comes to things like finishing nails, because there'll always be projects on the way that you're going to be using more of them for. And that's what I talk about when building your tickle trunk. So I already knew that I had these. It doesn't add any expense to the project. I bought them at bulk. There's 3,000 in here. And yeah, I know I'm going to be using this on this and like wainscoting and things like that. So I would encourage you to just buy those while you can. Maybe they're on sale or during a project, and it just makes sense. Good morning, you guys. The sunshine is coming in. The bookshelf is officially done, and my dad is just gonna pop over to hang it up. So I'll get to show you that, as well as what it will look like finally on the wall against the wallpaper. I just wanted to check in and say hello and how well it's gone, and I hope you do save this project to do it yourself, because I'm looking at it now and I'm just like, wow, I cannot believe that we made that. So let's get this thing hung up. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's good. Now that we have our project together and fully painted, of course we want to put it on the wall. And remember, we were measuring for those studs. Well, we also want to make sure that they are kind of even in the bookshelf. And we were very lucky when we were setting this up. So we made sure that was the case. 1 foot off the ceiling, and it really fit nicely with the wall and the chest of drawers. I highly recommend getting your hard furniture in a nursery or a room first before hanging this. So taking a look at how we assembled, first you want to drill in completely using a drill and your power drill, obviously. And then after that, what's really helpful is to pre-screw in your screws that are going to go in through the board as well as into the stud. And this is just going to allow you for easy access when you are actually hanging it to the wall. We decided to put 2 screws at the top, 2 screws at the bottom, both, or rather all of them, into studs. So this is definitely one of the most secure things in our house, ready to hold all of the books, and we'll show you just what it looks like, and then I'll give you a rundown. So officially hung. My dad put 2 in the studs at the top and 2 at the bottom as well, so it wouldn't lift away. And I'm gonna do a couple little touch-ups with paint, but this is the vibes. So as you've seen the entire process, it's only fair that I show you the final result. Thank you guys so much for making it this far. If you have, maybe put the word bookshelf in your comment. But this is our final bookshelf. A couple of things that we had to adjust about it. Well, not adjust, but like finish up. I'm so grateful for my dad helping me. Do you remember at the beginning of the video where we found the studs? Where that's where we hung in, and that's where we screwed in for this bookshelf. We got so lucky that these studs were truly in the perfect place. We couldn't have picked them any better. So we put 2 at the top, and then I asked as well, let's put 2 at the bottom. So you could literally climb on this. Don't, but you could, because it is super secured in the wall, which means it's going to hold so many books to come, which is very exciting. We're really looking forward to adding so many books to his collection. And above and beyond that, I just kind of went in with a little tiny paintbrush, and I painted over top of those screws just for some added detail. And then anywhere that I saw maybe a nick from finishing up the project. And yeah, I'm so happy with how it turned out. Some things that you could change about it in the future is you could add some more flourishes. I've seen people put hearts in the top and just different things like that. It totally depends on your woodworking skill and what you're comfortable with. There's also things that you can do, like you can find banners with cute little flags. I'll put an example on the screen here where you cover up those screws just with a little bit extra added fun. And I think as we continue to progress in doing this nursery and truly just living with baby boy, there'll be some really good fun pieces that are added here. But what I love about this, and a choice that I made, was originally I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll make the bookshelf like a bright yellow or a blue just to contrast and add a lot of fun, because this room is very cohesive and neutral. But well and truly, I'm so happy that I ended up color matching, doing September fog, the color of these leaves essentially at RONA Plus, because it just looks so cohesive, and the books truly do add just an air of decor anyways. Last thing I'll say, if you are a book lover, is I highly recommend, if someone is going to be gifting your child a book and you're using this project in a nursery, is to have them write a little note to them in the book. It makes it so special and so lovely. Both Scotty's mom as well as my mom have done that for Christmas for him, and now every time I open them, it just brings me that much more joy. Last but not least, thank you RONA Plus for sponsoring this video. I can't wait to continue to do projects, and if you did find this helpful, please do let me know down below, or if you have any extra tips along the way. My dad really helped me out with this, and we are always continuously learning on this channel, and that's what I love the most about it. I love you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.